My name is Callum Voss. I am 34 and Omega. For 20 years, I was the solution to problems other people made. One Tuesday, in a private dining room full of men who thought they knew me, my father slid a folder across a table and said 2 words: "Help your family." Everyone was watching. I already knew what was inside that folder. I had known for 8 months. But to understand that moment, what I did and what I didn't do, you have to understand who I was before I walked into that room. Our boots hit the gravel at 6:15. Mine, then the smaller ones. Petra was already naming the clouds. Billy was counting fence posts. Morning light over the Vermont fields. Cold, clear, the kind of quiet that 2 years ago would have made me nervous. Now it was the only thing I trusted. I walked the fence line every morning before anything else. The boundary is the first thing I check, always has been. I don't mean that as metaphor. I mean I walk the entire eastern perimeter, 3 acres of post and rail, and I look for breaks. Whether damage, animal tracks that shouldn't be there, anything that crossed a line it shouldn't have. Petra followed me that morning. She was 6, which meant she had opinions about everything. "The clouds are sheep," she said. "Good to know." "Running away from a wolf," I looked up. "Is the wolf catching them?" "No, the wolf is tired and needs a nap." "Smart wolf." She nodded, very serious, and ran back to the house. I kept walking. The fence was steady, no breaks. I touched a post that had weathered 3 winters since I put it in. Solid. I had built this place. Every post, every beam, every decision. Not because I always wanted to be a farmer, but because someone asked me 7 years ago a question I had never been asked before. "What would you do if no one was watching?" I answered, something that didn't perform. He didn't laugh. He just nodded, like he already knew. 2 years later, I bought the land. 4 years after that, I walked away from Wall Street for good. I didn't tell Rowan Fenn I had done it. Not then. By the time I could have called, too much time had passed and I didn't know what I would say. I finally answered your question felt like too much and not enough. So I built the farm. And I kept the jacket. The jacket is on a hook near the back door, olive green canvas worn at both elbows, the collar soft from years of weather. A farmhand's jacket. That's what I say when someone asks. What I don't say, it was in the back of my truck the morning I left New York. I found it packed between boxes I didn't remember packing. It had been Rowan's. He had left it at my apartment 3 years before, during a winter so cold the pipes froze, and I never gave it back. He never asked. If a visitor asks, which they rarely do, I say it belonged to a farmhand who moved on. The lie is smooth, almost invisible. I kept it because letting go of a jacket someone wore felt like losing a person twice. I didn't say that either. The kitchen was warm. Grandpa Fenn was at the table, 78 years old, reading the same newspaper he'd been reading for 3 days. He didn't read it for news, he read it for the shape of the morning. "Coffee's hot," he said without looking up. "Thank you." He had shown up 6 months after I bought the farm, no announcement, just a suitcase and a question. "Need help?" I said no. He moved in anyway. He was the only member of my family who had ever shown up without wanting something. Noel, my uncle, Aldrich's younger brother, came twice a year, stayed one night, said very little, left. I never knew what he saw when he looked at me, and I stopped trying to guess. The rest of them, they only called when the math wasn't working. I had not always been able to see it. That is the thing about being raised inside a machine. You don't know you're a part until you try to step out. My father, Aldrich Voss, built Voss Capital from nothing, or rather, he built it from the labor of everyone around him and called it merit. He was 60 years old and had never apologized for a single thing in his life. Not because he was cruel, but because he genuinely believed he had never been wrong. My brother Idris, 36 beta, the one who stayed, the one who learned to nod at the right times, he had always been the one who managed the numbers. I never asked what he managed them for. And Soren Hale, my brother-in-law, married to our sister Sylvie before she passed. 38 Alpha, the one who carried the family's public face. Handsome. Charming. Empty in a way that took years to recognize. We had all been raised to believe that loyalty meant silence. I believed it for 32 years, then I left. The email arrived at 10:47 a.m. I was in the barn checking the tractor's hydraulics. My phone buzzed. I wiped my hands on my jeans and read it. "Callum, dinner for your father's birthday. Saturday, 7 p.m. The Gold Room." Private entrance, please confirm. Idris, I read it twice. The gold room, 5th floor, full service, the kind of room where deals were made and reputations were polished. Aldrich's birthday, I had missed the last 3. I thumbed a reply. What time should I arrive? The answer came in 90 seconds. Be early. He wants to speak with you before the guests arrive. I stared at the words. He wants to speak with you. That sentence in my family was never neutral. If you have ever known the specific temperature of a sentence that means you are about to be asked for something you cannot refuse, you already know what I felt when I read those words. I put down my phone. I did not answer. I knew what they were planning, not because I had guessed. Because Rowan had spent 8 months finding it. Rowan Fenn, the alpha I had not spoken to in 5 years, the only man I had ever loved in a way that changed the architecture of my life. He found me a year ago, not in person, through a letter. Hand-delivered, no return address. Callum, I need to tell you something about your family. I don't want to say it in a letter. If you want to know, call me. If you don't, burn this and I'll never bring it up again. I called him the same night. We met at a diner halfway between his office and my farm, neutral ground, coffee that tasted like regret. He looked older, steadier. He had built a financial intelligence firm, Fenn Analytics, that specialized in tracking hidden capital flows, the kind of work that made people nervous if they had something to hide. He slid a folder across the table. Read it, he said. Then we can talk or not talk, your choice. I read it. It took 2 hours. When I looked up, he was watching me with the same expression he had worn the night he asked me what I would do if no one was watching. Careful, patient. I didn't tell you in the letter, he said, because I needed you to see it yourself. Not through my voice, your eyes, your judgment. It took you 8 months. Yes. Why? He was quiet for a moment. Because if I told you too soon, you might have tried to fix them instead of leaving them, and I wasn't going to let you drown for people who were already holding you under. I did not say anything. I didn't have to. The folder contained bank records showing transfers out of Voss Capital accounts that Callum had never authorized. Loan documents with his signature, a signature he had not written. A shell company registered in his name in the Cayman Islands that he had never heard of. A timeline of liability shifting, moving debt, risk, and regulatory exposure onto his personal financial profile. The plan was not simple, it was elegant. Over 7 years, Idris and Soren had restructured debt across a network of entities, each step legal on its own, but the cumulative effect was clear when Voss Capital collapsed, and the data suggested it was already failing. The liability would land on Callum. His name, his assets, his ruin, and Aldrich had known. Not the details, perhaps, but enough. Enough to let it happen, enough to not stop it. I did not call my father after I read that folder. I did not call Idris. I did not call Soren. I went home. I walked the fence line. I checked the posts that were already steady, and I waited. Because Rowan was right. If I had known earlier, I would have tried to fix it. I would have confronted them. I would have given them a chance to explain, to apologize, to make it right. They would have lied. I would have believed them. And the cycle would have continued. So I waited. I did not confront them. I did not warn them. I gathered my own evidence. I found my own lawyer. I prepared my own exit. And when the invitation came, the dinner, the gold room, the private audience before the guests arrived, I did not burn it. I confirmed, and I started getting ready. Petra asked me that evening what I was thinking about. I was sitting on the porch steps. The sun was down. The fields were dark. The fence line, I said, whether it needs repairs. She considered this with the seriousness of a 6-year-old. Is it broken? No, but I like to check. She sat next to me. Her small shoulder pressed against my arm. Who's coming to dinner? I looked at her. No one important, I said. Then why are you wearing your good shirt? I didn't have an answer for that. If this story is finding you at the right moment, stay a little longer. There are more stories like this one. I left the farm at 5:30 on Saturday. Grandpa Fenn was reading his newspaper at the kitchen table. He didn't ask where I was going. He looked at me once. Then he said, "The fence will hold." I didn't ask how he knew. I put on my jacket, clean and dark, and I stopped at the back door. The farm jacket was still on its hook. Rowan's jacket. I touched the collar, one finger along the worn seam. I did not look at it. I did not take it down. I left. The gold room was on the 5th floor of a building my father owned, private elevator, soundproofed, a room designed for conversations that were never supposed to leave it. I arrived at 6:15. Idris was waiting in the anteroom. He looked thinner than I remembered, tired. Callum, Idris. He tried to read my face. I let him try. Aldrich is inside. He wanted to speak with you before, I know. I walked past him. The room was paneled in dark wood, a long table, seats for 20. A window that looked out over the city, lights already coming on in the buildings across the street. Aldrich Voss stood near the window. He was 60 years old, silver-haired, dressed in a suit that cost more than most people's rent. He turned when I entered. Callum. Father, he smiled. It did not reach his eyes. Thank you for coming, you asked. Yes, well, he gestured to the table. Sit, we have a few minutes before the others arrive. I sat. He did not sit across from me. He sat beside me, a deliberate choice, intimacy. The posture of a man who wanted something. He slid a folder across the table. Help your family. I looked at the folder. I did not open it. I already knew what was inside. Financials, a request, a problem I was expected to solve. What do you need? I asked. Aldrich leaned back. Voss Capital has a liquidity issue, temporary, we've restructured, but there's a gap. We need a bridge loan, personal guarantee. Your assets are substantial, Callum. The farm alone. The farm is not for sale. Of course not. I'm not asking you to sell it. I'm asking you to guarantee a loan against it. Against it. Against the ground I had built. Against the fence I checked every morning. Who structured the restructuring? I asked. Aldrich's smile flickered. Idris, with Soren's input. And the documentation? Standard. I nodded. I opened the folder. It took me less than a minute to confirm what I already knew. The same pattern, the same names, the same accounts. But this time now I had the other folder. I reached into my bag. Aldrich watched me. I placed a folder of my own on the table, identical in size, different in content. Before I help, I said, let's fix something first. I opened it. I already knew what was inside. I had known for 8 months. I spread the documents across the table. 3 pages. A summary. Enough to make the shape visible without overwhelming the room. I had practiced this. Not the words, the calm. I had practiced the calm for 8 months. You have a problem, I said. But it's not liquidity. Aldrich's eyes moved across the pages. I watched him recognize the account numbers, the dates. The signatures he had seen enough times to know which ones were real and which ones I had never written. What is this? 7 years. 5 shell companies. 1 personal liability structure designed to transfer the collapse of Voss Capital onto my name. Silence. You want me to guarantee a loan against the farm, I said, but the plan was never for me to pay it back, was it? The plan was for Voss Capital to fail after the guarantee was signed. Structured bankruptcy. All debt moved to my profile, your assets protected, my ruin. Aldrich's jaw tightened. Idris and Soren handled the structuring. I know. And you think I authorized this? I know you didn't authorize the specifics. I met his eyes. You just didn't stop it. You let it happen, that's different, but the result is the same. He had no answer. I looked down at the documents. 7 years, I said again. You had 7 years to tell me. You didn't. I did not raise my voice. There is a specific temperature that betrayal reaches when it has been expected for a long time. It doesn't burn when it arrives. It is cold. Familiar. A room you have been standing in longer than anyone knew. I had been standing in that room for 8 months. I knew every page of that evidence. I had read it in Rowan's quiet office, late at night with his hand resting near mine on the table, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth. He had not rushed me. He had let me read it alone, come to my own conclusions, ask my own questions. When I had finished, he said, whatever you decide, I'll support it. Not, you should leave them. Not, I told you so. Just your choice, your life, I will be here. I had not known until that moment how long I had been waiting for someone to say that without wanting something in return. The anteroom door opened. Idris stepped in. Guests are arriving, he stopped. He saw the documents on the table. He saw my face. He saw Aldrich's silence. Callum, Idris, what are you doing? Showing Dad the architecture of the family business. I did not stand, I did not raise my voice, I let him see the papers. He went pale. That's not, it's photocopies, clean. Organized. You kept good records, Idris. That was your mistake. The forgeries were careful, but the originals were in the same system. You built a beautiful machine, it just had one weakness. I waited. What weakness? I got better help than you did. The gold room filled. Investors, board members, men in expensive suits who had been in Aldrich's orbit for decades. They came for the birthday dinner. They came for the networking. They came because they knew Aldrich Voss was powerful and power had gravity. They did not know they had walked into a reckoning. I stood near the table, the documents were still visible. Aldrich had not touched them since I laid them out. Soren arrived with the last wave. He looked thinner than I remembered. His alpha scent was muted wrong somehow. Like a fire that had burned too long and was running out of oxygen. He saw me, he saw the documents. He walked to the bar and poured himself a drink with hands that did not quite steady. I watched him. He did not meet my eyes. Dinner was served at 8. I stayed. Not because I wanted to, because I had come to finish something, and finishing meant being present for all of it. Aldrich gave a speech. His voice did not waver. He was a man who had spent 60 years learning to perform through the worst moments. I watched the room applaud and thought, not one of them knows. I sat at the far end of the table. Idris was 3 seats away. Soren was across from me. Soren's hands were empty. He had always been a man who needed his hands occupied, a pen, a glass, a phone. Tonight his hands were still. He was looking at me, not like a man who wanted to explain, like a man who had already lost the argument and was just waiting for the verdict. After the main course, Aldrich stood. I'd like to propose a toast, he said. Glasses rose, he looked at me. To family and to my son Callum, who, I set down my glass. I'm not your solution, Aldrich. The room went quiet. I wasn't going to say, I know what you were going to say. I stood. I did not look at the investors. I did not look at the men whose names I had known my whole life. I looked at my father. You didn't ask me to save you, you expected me to drown for you. Aldrich's face went still. I could not tell if it was shame or rage. After 34 years, I still could not read my father correctly. That told me everything I needed to know. You've spent 20 years making me responsible for problems I didn't create, and I let you, because I thought loyalty meant staying until it was fixed. I paused. But loyalty doesn't mean staying until you drown. It means knowing when to stop giving to people who are already holding you under. Silence, heavy, absolute, then I closed the folder. If you have ever stood in a room and understood, in a single breath, that you were never going to let them use you again, you already know what I felt when I placed that folder on the table. It was not triumph. It was not grief. It was the quietest sense of arrival, like reaching the end of a road you did not choose and realizing you could stop walking. I turned to leave. Callum, Soren's voice, thin, I stopped. Listen, no, I did not turn around. You've said enough for 7 years. You don't understand, I understand perfectly. You made a plan, it failed, now you want me to fix it. Silence. That's what you always wanted, I said. I'm not doing it anymore. I walked toward the door. Idris stood. Callum, I kept walking. The door opened. Rowan was in the hallway. He was wearing a dark coat. His hands were empty. His scent reached me before I could slow down. That scent, I had known it for 10 years. Smoked cedar. Clean, steady. It hit me like ground I had not realized I was falling toward. He was not supposed to be here. I had not asked him to come. He looked at me. I didn't know if you'd want company afterward, he said. So I waited. I stood in the hallway of a building I would never enter again, and I looked at the only man who had ever given me something without asking for repayment. I did not say thank you. I did not say anything. I walked toward him. He did not reach for me. He just turned and walked beside me. That was enough. The farm was dark when we arrived. The porch light was on. Grandpa Fenn had left the door unlocked. I sat on the steps. The field stretched out in front of me, invisible in the dark, but I knew where every post was. Rowan sat beside me, not close enough to touch, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him at the edge of my awareness. We did not speak for a long time, then he said, "You did it." "I did it." "How do you feel?" I considered the question. "Like I've been holding my breath for 8 months and just let it out." He nodded. "I'm proud of you," he said, "not 'I knew you could.' Not 'I told you so.' Just the words." I looked at him. He was looking at the fields. His hands were in his pockets. I thought he kept his hands in his pockets the entire time he showed me the evidence. 8 months ago, in that diner, he never reached for me once. Not because he didn't want to, because he was giving me space to choose. I had never noticed that before. If you have ever had someone lay the truth in front of you with such care that you could not hate them for knowing, you already know what Rowan's hands looked like on that table. Still, patient, empty, the house was quiet. We sat on the porch until the stars shifted. At some point Lee cried out in his sleep, a small sound, quickly over. I heard Grandpa Fenn's footsteps, then silence. "He's good with them," Rowan said. "Fenn, your grandfather, he always was." I did not add more than my father ever was. I didn't have to. Rowan watched the dark fields. "I should go," he said. "You should stay." The words came out before I thought about them. He looked at me. "There's a guest room," I said. "Top of the stairs. Sheets are clean." He was quiet for a moment. "Callum, I'm not asking for anything else. Just don't drive back tonight. It's late." I didn't say I don't want to be alone with what just happened. I didn't say I spent 8 months knowing what they did and you were the only person I could breathe around. I just said stay. He nodded. "Okay." 3 nights later. The porch is quiet. Fireflies drift slowly across the dark fields. I sit on the steps. Still. I haven't checked the fence line in 2 days. The posts are fine. They were fine before. I think I knew that. The door opens behind me. Soft footsteps. The scent arrives before the voice. Rowan sits beside me, close, not touching, but the space between us is smaller than it was 3 nights ago. "I thought they would break me," I say, a pause. "But they just showed me exactly who I needed to stop being." He doesn't answer right away. He looks at the fields. "And who are you now?" he asks. I exhale. "Someone who doesn't beg to be chosen." The words land between us. I feel him go still, then I feel him relax, not away from me, into the moment. "Good," he says quietly. "You never had to beg." I don't answer. I don't know how to tell him what I've been realizing for 8 months. That the reason I kept the jacket is not because I forgot to return it. That the reason I answered his letter is not because I wanted evidence. That the reason I called him that night is not because I needed a lawyer. I called him because I had been waiting 5 years for a reason to hear his voice again. And he gave me one. The evidence was the excuse. He was the reason. Inside, Petra laughs in her sleep. The sound drifts through the window, soft, real, the laugh of a child who has never been asked to be anything but herself. Rowan's mouth curves slightly. "She does that," I say. "I remember." I look at him. "You remember that? From the video calls, when you were still in New York, she'd laugh in her sleep and you'd switch the phone to show me her face." I had forgotten. He hadn't. The fields stretch out in the dark. Full, untouched. I look at them and realize they're not a boundary anymore. They're just ground, land I chose. "I haven't checked the fence line in 2 days," I say. "Any breaks?" "No." "Then you didn't need to." I hadn't thought of it that way. The boundary held. Not because I guarded it every morning, because I had already moved past what needed guarding. Rowan shifts beside me. "The gold room," he says. "The dinner, what happened after I left?" "Heard from Idris. Soren called." I look at him. "What did he want?" "To apologize, through me, like I was a messenger service." "Did you accept?" "No, I told him to call you." "Did he?" Rowan shakes his head. I nod. "That's right, that's what they do. They want the resolution without the confrontation. They want the forgiveness without the apology. I'm done providing either." A firefly lands on the porch railing, glows once, twice, then lifts and drifts into the dark. "You never asked me why I kept the jacket," I say. He goes still. The silence between us is not empty, it's full of years. "Which jacket?" he asks, like he doesn't know, like the question isn't the answer. "The one you left at my apartment, the winter the pipes froze." 7 years ago. 8. He is quiet for a long moment. "I always wondered where that went." I found it when I packed to leave New York. I put it in the truck without thinking. He says nothing. You never asked for it back. No, he says. Why? He turns to look at me. The porch light catches his face. Because if you kept it, I figured you'd come back eventually, or not. Either way, it wasn't mine to ask for. 7 years. And he had left the jacket with me on purpose, not as a claim. As a permission, take what you need, keep it, let go of it when you're ready. He had never tried to control the timeline. I looked down at my hands. I kept it because letting it go felt like losing you a second time. He doesn't answer, but the space between us gets smaller. The fireflies have gone dark. The fields are invisible now. Just the sound of wind through grass. Inside, the house is asleep. Grandpa Fen, Petra, Illy, a full house, a chosen family. Rowan is still beside me. Callum, I look at him. 8 months, he says. When I found the evidence, I didn't know if I should tell you. Not because I doubted you, because I didn't want to be the person who made you see your family differently. You didn't make me see anything. I know, but I was scared you'd hate me for knowing. I don't hate you, he nods, a small silence. Then he says, what do you feel? I think about it. I think about the jacket, the letter, the 8 months of knowing and waiting, the dinner, the walk through the hallway, the 3 nights he has stayed in the guest room, asking for nothing, being present. Tired, I say, and I stop, and what? And not tired of you. His hand moves, rests on the step between us, not reaching for me, not retreating, waiting. If you have ever loved someone and learned that loving them meant watching them choose, not choosing you, but choosing themselves, you know what I mean when I say this was the hardest part, and also the easiest. Hardest, because I had spent my whole life being chosen. Easiest, because he had already proven he would stay whether I chose him or not. I don't know what I'm doing, I say. You don't have to. Rowan, I mean it. His voice is low, steady. You don't have to know. You just walked away from the only structure you've ever known. You don't have to have the next 10 years figured out. You just have to be here. And if I want more than here, he turns to face me fully. What do you want? I look at him. I want to stop pretending I kept that jacket by accident. His breath catches, the air between us thickens, I can smell him, cedar clean. The scent I recognized before I walked out of the gold room. The scent that has been in my house for 3 days, drifting through the hallway, settling on the guest room sheets. I have been telling myself I was not waiting for something. I have been lying. If I had told you, he says slowly, 8 months ago that I was building the case because I was still in love with you, would you have believed me? I don't answer right away. I don't know. Does that answer change now? I look at the fields. The dark, the fence I haven't checked. Yes, he waits. You built the case, I say, and you gave it to me. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't make it about you. You gave me the truth and let me choose what to do with it. That is what love is supposed to be. I didn't know that. I know. I feel the words settle. I lean into his shoulder. He does not flinch, does not pull away. He just adjusts slightly, steadying me. I close my eyes. The fields stretch out in front of us, full, untouched. And for the first time, I am not part of their story anymore. I am part of mine. Later, I don't know how much later, I hear him speak. Callum, can I ask you for something? I open my eyes. One thing, I say. He looks at me. His eyes reflect the porch light. He is not smiling, but there is something open in his face that I have not seen in years. Stay here, he says, with me, not because I'm asking you to because you want to. That's not a request. Yes, it is. I'm asking you to want what you want. And not apologize for it. I look at him. The man who kept my evidence. The man who left his jacket at my apartment and never asked for it back. The man who sat beside me on this porch for 3 nights asking for nothing. Yes, I say, I want to stay here. He exhales, one breath, like he had been holding it since the moment he read the evidence. Good. I want him to know I am not a gift he received. I am a choice I made. The house is quiet. The fireflies have come back. We stay on the porch until the sky begins to change. Morning came slow. Gray light through the kitchen windows. The smell of coffee already brewed. Grandpa Fen at the table with his newspaper, 3 days old, same page. He looked up when I walked in. You're up early, he said. I never went to bed. He did not ask why, he just pushed a mug across the table. I sat down. The kitchen was warm. The clock ticked. Somewhere upstairs, Ellie was waking up. I could hear the small sounds of a 4-year-old rediscovering the world. Rowan was still on the porch. I had left him there an hour ago. Not because I wanted to. Because I needed a moment to feel what had happened without his presence softening the edges. I had told him I wanted to stay. I had meant it. But meaning something and knowing what to do with it were two different skills. Grandpa Fenn turned a page of his newspaper. He's still here, he said. I know. That the first time you've said what you actually wanted in, he looked up, calculating. How many years? I don't know. Yes, you do, I did. 7 years, since the winter the pipes froze, since I let Rowan walk out of my apartment without saying stay. I had spent 7 years wanting and not saying, and last night on a porch in the dark I had finally said it. I want to stop pretending I kept that jacket by accident. Grandpa Fenn folded his paper. Good, he said. Then he went back to reading, no lecture, no follow-up. Just acknowledgement, that was how he had always been. Present without pressure. He showed up, made coffee, read his newspaper, and let you arrive at your own conclusions. I had learned more from his silence than from anyone else's speeches. The back door opened, Rowan stepped inside, his coat was damp with morning air. Coffee, I asked, if you're offering. I stood and poured him a mug, he took it. His fingers brushed mine. Not an accident, not a performance, just a touch that lasted exactly as long as it needed to. He sat at the table across from Grandpa Fenn. Morning, he said. Morning, Fenn said. They looked at each other. Two men who had measured each other over 3 days and found the scale balanced. Fenn nodded once. Rowan nodded back, and that was that. Petra came down the stairs at a run. Rowan's still here, she said it like it was the best news of the year. Petra, did you sleep in the guest room? I checked this morning and the bed was made. That means you either made it or you didn't sleep there at all. Petra, that's enough, I'm just asking. Rowan looked at her. Guest room, did you sleep? Some. Good, Callum doesn't sleep when he's worried, did you know that? I closed my eyes. I know, Rowan said. Okay, Petra climbed onto a chair. Are you staying for breakfast? If I'm invited. You're invited. She looked at me. He's invited. I heard. Good. She reached for the toast. Ellie came down 10 minutes later, quiet, observant. He stood in the doorway and looked at the table. Rowan, Grandpa Fenn, Petra, me. He processed the configuration, then he walked to the table and sat next to Rowan. Hi, he said. Hi, Rowan said. Ellie did not say anything else. He just started eating his toast, satisfied with the arrangement. I watched him, 4 years old. Already learning to choose where he sat. He had never met his mother. Sylvie died before he was old enough to remember her. I had never known how much of her was in him. But I saw it now. The quiet observation, the certainty about where he belonged, he had gotten that from somewhere. Breakfast passed in small motions. Petra talked. Illy listened. Fenn read his newspaper. Rowan drank his coffee. I watched the morning light move across the kitchen floor. This was what peace looked like. Not dramatic, not earned through confrontation, just a table full of people who were not waiting for me to fix something. I had spent 34 years believing I had to earn my place at tables like this. I had been wrong. I had always been allowed to sit. After breakfast, I walked the fence line. For the first time in 3 days. The posts were solid, no breaks. The grass was wet with morning dew. I reached the eastern edge and stopped. This was where I usually turned around. I did not turn, I kept walking, past the boundary, into the field beyond. There was nothing there, just more ground, more grass, more morning. I stood in the middle of it and realized I had never walked past the fence line before. I had always stopped at the boundary because boundaries meant safety, but safety was not the same as living. When I came back, Rowan was in the barn. He was checking the tractor's hydraulics. I stood in the doorway and watched him. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Fixing something?" It wasn't broken. He looked up. Every machine has something that needs adjustment, even the ones that look fine. He held my gaze. I understood. That evening we sat on the porch again. The fireflies were slower tonight, fewer. The air was cooler. "The children like you," I said. "They're good children. They're not used to people staying." Rowan looked at the fields. "I'm not used to staying," he said. "Then why are you?" He turned to face me. The porch light caught half his face. "Because you asked. I asked you to stay one night. You asked me to stay." I did not correct him. He was right. "I should tell you something," he said. "Go ahead." Evidence I found, the last piece. I didn't give it to you before the dinner because I didn't know if you were ready. Ready for what? He reached into his coat. Pulled out a single sheet of paper. Aldrich's personal accounts, transfers from Voss Capital to a private trust, not to cover debt, to move assets before the collapse. I stared at the paper. The whole time, Rowan said. Every year for 10 years, he was moving money out. He was never going down with the ship. He was building a lifeboat for himself. I took the paper, read it, set it down. Does Idris know? I don't know, Soren. Probably he was the one who processed the transfers. I looked at the fields. 10 years. Aldrich had been preparing to abandon them long before the plan to frame me. You're not angry, Rowan said. I'm not surprised. That's worse. He nodded. The paper sat on the porch between us. I should have felt something, rage, grief. I felt nothing because I had already left. I had already chosen. The evidence was not a revelation, it was confirmation. And I did not need confirmation to know what I already knew. She would have liked you, I said. Rowan looked at me. Sylvie, your sister. She was the only one who saw it, what Aldrich was doing. She tried to warn me before she got sick. I didn't listen. Why? Because she was the one who always saw the worst in people. I thought she was being paranoid. Was she? No, I looked at the paper. She was being accurate. I thought about Sylvie, her sharp eyes. Her quiet warnings. The way she had looked at me the last time I saw her, like she was trying to tell me something she couldn't say out loud, I had not understood until now. Rowan? Yeah, thank you. For what? For finishing what she started. He was quiet, then he said, I'd do it again. The children were asleep. Grandpa Fenn had gone to bed. The house was dark except for the porch light. Rowan and I sat in the quiet. I should go back to my place tomorrow, he said. Okay, I need to check on things, work. I know, I'll come back. I looked at him. I know, he stood. I stood with him. Callum. Rowan. We looked at each other in the dark. He reached up, one hand, he touched my jaw lightly, as if asking permission. I leaned into it. I'll come back, he said again. I know. He lowered his hand, walked to the door, stopped. The jacket, he said, keep it, it looks better on you anyway. He went inside. I stayed on the porch. The fields were dark. The fireflies were gone. The fence line was steady. I touched my jaw where his hand had been, still warm. He left at sunrise. I watched his truck pull down the gravel drive, taillights disappearing through the mist, the sound of tires fading into the kind of quiet that takes a moment to recognize as absence. Petra stood beside me on the porch. Is he coming back? Yes. When? I don't know. She considered this. Did you tell him you wanted him to? I looked down at her. Yes. Good, she nodded, satisfied. That's how you keep people. She went inside. I stayed on the porch until the mist burned off. The day passed in small tasks. I fixed a loose board on the chicken coop. I checked the irrigation line. I swept the barn, movement without decision, the kind of day where the body stays busy so the mind can settle. I found myself at the fence line. Eastern perimeter. 3 acres of post and rail. I stood at the edge. I did not cross, but I did not need to. The boundary had changed. It was no longer a wall between me and what I feared. It was just a line marking where one piece of ground ended and another began. I could cross it anytime. Knowing that was enough. 3 days passed. Rowan called each night, short conversations, the kind that don't need to fill silence. How's the tractor? Still fixed. The children. Petra asked if you were coming back, twice. What did you say? I said yes. She said you better. He laughed, a low, quiet sound. Tell her I'm holding up my end. I will. Pause. Callum, still here. Good. Click. On the 4th day, a car I did not recognize came up the drive, not Rowan's. A black sedan, rental plates. I was in the barn. I watched it park, watched the door open. Noel Voss stepped out, my uncle, Aldrich's younger brother, 62 years old. Gray hair, the same jawline as my father, but softer. He had always been the quiet one. The one who showed up twice a year, stayed one night, said very little, and left. I had never known what he thought of me. I had never asked. I walked out of the barn. Noel. Callum. He stood by the car, hands in his coat pockets, watching me with the same careful attention he had always worn. I'm not here on behalf of Aldrich, he said. Then why are you here? He was quiet for a moment. Because I should have come sooner. We sat on the porch. I did not offer him coffee. He did not ask. You knew, I said, not a question. He looked at the fields, parts of it, not the full architecture. I knew something was wrong. I knew Aldrich was moving money. I knew Idris and Soren were doing something they didn't want me to see. Did you ask? No, I looked at him. Why not? He took a long breath. Because asking would have meant knowing, and knowing would have meant choosing, and I had spent 30 years not choosing. Until now, he met my eyes. Until now, I waited. I came to tell you, he said, that I'm sorry, not for what they did, for what I didn't do. You were there. Yes, you saw, yes, and you said nothing. He did not flinch. No, I said nothing. The silence stretched. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. That's not why I came. Then why? He looked at the fields. Because I don't want to be the person who watches anymore. I thought about it. 30 years of watching, 30 years of knowing something was wrong and not speaking. I knew that path. I had walked it myself. That takes time, I said, learning to speak. I know. It's not easy, I know. I looked at him. He looked old. Not in the way Aldrich looked old, defensive, armored. He looked like a man who had carried something heavy for a long time and was only now setting it down. Stay for dinner, I said. He blinked. You came all this way, you might as well eat. He looked at me. I did not smile, but I did not look away either. Dinner was quiet. Petra asked who Noel was. I said he was family. She looked at him, looked at me, decided. He can stay, she said. Noel nodded. Illy watched him from across the table, silent, assessing. Noel met his gaze and held it. After a long moment, Illy went back to eating. Approval given silently. Noel left after dinner. He stood at the door, coat on, keys in hand. Thank you, he said. For what? For not making me earn it. I looked at him. Next time you come, bring something for the kids. He almost smiled. Okay. He walked to his car. I watched him drive away. Behind me, the house was warm. The children were inside. The lights were on. I had not forgiven him, but I had given him a door. That was enough for tonight. The phone rang at 9. Callum, Rowan, good day. Unexpected. Good unexpected or bad, I thought about it. Different. Want to tell me? I sat on the porch steps. Noel came. Silence. Your Uncle Noel. The same. What did he want? To apologize for not speaking sooner. Did you accept? No, but I fed him. A pause, then Rowan's voice warm. That's more than he deserved. Probably. And less than he needed. I looked at the dark fields. You always do that. Do what? See the shape of what people need. He was quiet. Not always, he said. Only when I care. I went to bed that night and lay awake. The ceiling was familiar. The sounds were familiar. The weight beside me was not there. I had gotten used to him being in the guest room. I had gotten used to the scent of cedar in the hallway. I had gotten used to not waking up alone in a house full of people. That was dangerous. That was the thing I had avoided for 7 years. I did not try to avoid it anymore. Morning. I was at the fence line before sunrise. I walked the eastern perimeter, checked the posts, found nothing. The boundary was steady. I stood at the edge and looked at the field beyond. Then I heard gravel, a truck. I turned. Rowan's truck was coming up the drive. He parked, got out. He looked tired, like he had driven through the night. 4 days, I said. 3.5. Long trip. He walked toward me, stopped a few feet away. I told you I'd come back. You did. He looked at the fence line, the field beyond. Walking the boundary, checking for breaks. Find any? No, he nodded. Then he stepped past me, over the fence line, into the field. He turned, standing on ground I had never stepped on. Coming, I looked at him. At the boundary I had walked every morning for 2 years. At the ground I had never crossed, I stepped over. The grass was damp. The morning light was gray. We stood in the middle of a field that was just grass, nothing special, except that I had never been here. I don't know what's out here, I said. Neither do I. Then why are we here? He looked at me. Because you don't have to know, you just have to be willing to find out. I looked at the field, at the mist, at the morning. Okay, we started walking. The field stretched farther than I had thought. From the fence line, it had looked like a small clearing, maybe an acre, easy to see the edges. But walking it changed the scale. The grass was taller here, uncut, wild in a way the farm wasn't. The ground was uneven, small rises, dips, places where water had pooled and dried. I had never seen this land up close. I had never wanted to. Because crossing the fence meant admitting the boundary was not a necessity. It was a choice, and I had not been ready to choose. Rowan walked beside me. Not ahead, not behind. Matching pace, we reached the far edge, another fence line, older, rusted wire. Posts that had been here longer than I had owned the farm. Beyond it, more fields, more mist, more morning. Another boundary, I said. Every piece of land has one. Not every piece of land was built to keep things out. Rowan looked at the old fence. Maybe this one was built to keep something in. I looked at it. A different kind of boundary, not one I had built, one that had been here before me. Think there's anything on the other side? I asked. Only one way to find out. I looked at him. He was not pushing. He was standing beside me, hands in his pockets, waiting to see what I would choose. I looked at the fence. The wire was rusted but intact. The posts were solid. It would take work to cross, but not impossible. Not today, I said. He nodded. Okay, we turned back. Walking back, the farmhouse came into view through the mist. Small, steady, lights on in the kitchen. I had built that. I had chosen that. And now I knew what was on the other side of the boundary I had never crossed. Just more ground, more possibility, not a threat. I had been guarding myself against something that was never coming. Breakfast was loud. Petra had discovered that Rowan was back and was conducting an interrogation. Did you bring anything? Breakfast tacos. Good answer. Did you sleep in your truck? No. Where did you sleep? The guest room. Did Callum know you were coming? Rowan looked at me. Yes. Did you tell him or did he guess? I told him. Good, he's bad at guessing. I set down my coffee. I'm sitting right here. I know. Petra did not look away from Rowan. He's also bad at asking for things, so if he wants something, you have to ask him twice. Rowan's mouth twitched. Noted. Good, can I have a taco? Illy sat at the table, eating his breakfast in silence. He watched Rowan with the same careful attention he had shown Noel, but the assessment was different. After a long moment, he slid his extra toast toward Rowan, a gift. Rowan looked at the toast, looked at Illy. Thank you, Illy nodded. He went back to eating. No explanation, no follow-up. Just a 4-year-old deciding that the man at the table belonged. After breakfast, Rowan found me in the barn. I was checking the tractor again, not because it needed it, because I needed my hands busy. You're avoiding something, he said. I'm avoiding nothing. You're avoiding talking about what happened at the fence. I stopped, turned. You're very observant. I'm very patient. There's a difference. I wiped my hands on a rag. I'm not used to choosing things, I said. I know. I'm used to reacting. Responding, solving problems other people made. I know. Walking past that fence, that was a choice, not a reaction, a choice, and I don't know what to do with that. Rowan leaned against the barn wall. You don't have to do anything with it. You just have to keep making them, one at a time. And if I make the wrong one, then you make another one. I looked at him. That easy. No, he held my gaze, but it's that simple. I thought about it. 34 years of believing that every choice had to be the right one. That one wrong move would undo everything. That I had to be perfect to be worthy of staying. And then I met a man who left his jacket at my apartment and never asked for it back. Who spent 8 months building evidence to protect me. Who drove through the night to stand beside me at a fence line. He had never asked me to be perfect. He had never asked me to be anything. He had just stayed. I want to tell you something, I said. He waited. I kept the jacket because I was not finished loving you. The words landed. I watched him go still. Around the time I left New York, I said, I realized that I had spent 7 years trying to convince myself I had moved on, that you were a chapter, that the farm was the next one. I paused. But you can't close a chapter if the bookmark is still in it. His breath caught. Callum, I'm not asking for anything, I'm telling you, because I should have told you 7 years ago, and I didn't. And I'm done not saying things. He crossed the space between us, 3 steps. His hand found my jaw, the same way it had on the porch, gentle. Asking, I leaned into it. I kept the jacket, I said, because I was not finished loving you and I could not bring myself to finish. He kissed me, soft, careful, like he had been waiting 7 years to do it and wanted to make sure I knew I could stop at any moment. I did not stop. When we pulled apart, the barn was quiet. The morning light was slanting through the gaps in the boards. I told you I'd come back, he said. You did. I meant it. I know. He touched my forehead to his. What now? He asked. I thought about it. The fence line, the field beyond, the farmhouse full of people who were waiting for nothing. Now, I said, we figure out what happens when you don't have to guard the boundary anymore. He smiled. Okay. That night we sat on the porch, the fireflies were back. Drifting across the dark fields. Inside, Petra laughed in her sleep. Illy had fallen asleep on the couch, still holding the toast he had given Rowan that morning. He had kept it all day. No one had asked why. Grandpa Fen was reading his newspaper in the kitchen, 3 days old, same page. The world was steady. I leaned into Rowan's shoulder, no hesitation, no weight. The fields stretched out in the dark, full, untouched. And for the first time I was not guarding anything, I was just here. A week passed. Then, too, Rowan's truck became a familiar sight in the driveway. His coffee mug found a permanent spot on the counter. Petra stopped asking if he was staying for dinner and started setting a plate for him without being told. I did not ask him to move in. He did not ask if he could. It just happened. The way things do when two people stop pretending they are not already living the same life. The documents from the dinner sat in a folder in my office. I had not looked at them since the night Noel came. I did not need to. I knew what they said. I knew what they meant. I knew what I had done with them and what I had chosen not to do. I had not filed a report. I had not contacted regulators. I had not pursued legal action. Not because I was protecting them. Because I had already spent enough of my life cleaning up their messes. Let them clean up their own. Idris called twice. I did not answer. Soren called once. I did not answer. Aldrich did not call. That told me everything. Noel came back. He brought a book for Petra, a field guide to clouds, and a small wooden truck for Illy. He stayed for dinner. He did not apologize again. He just sat at the table and let himself be present. After dinner, he walked the fence line with me. Your father is not doing well, he said. I know. He's lost weight. He's not sleeping. I know. He wants to see you. I stopped walking. I turned to face him. No. Noel looked at me. Callum, he had 34 years to see me. He spent them using me. I'm not available for a deathbed reconciliation. He's not dying. Then he has time to figure out what he wants to say. Noel was quiet. Then he nodded. Fair. We walked back to the house. That night I lay awake. Rowan was beside me, not in the guest room anymore. He had stopped pretending that was where he belonged. The ceiling was familiar. The sounds were familiar. The weight beside me was familiar now too. You're thinking, he said, always. What about? I was quiet. Idris called again. I know. I didn't answer. I know. I don't know if that's the right choice. He turned toward me. Is there a right choice? I thought about it. I don't know. Then maybe the choice is just the choice, not right or wrong, just made. I looked at him. You sound like someone who's made a few wrong choices. I have. He did not look away, but I'm still here. I held his gaze. Yes, I said, you are. Morning came with rain. The kind of slow, steady rain that settles into the ground and does not rush. I stood on the porch and watched it. Rowan came up behind me, hand on my shoulder, not holding, just present. Soren is here, he said. I looked. A car was coming up the drive, not the sedan Noel had driven. A different car, older, worn. I watched it park. Soren got out. He looked thinner than the night of the dinner. His clothes were clean but tired. His alpha scent was muted, not the sharpness I remembered, but something slower, like a fire banked low. He stood by the car, waiting. I'll handle it, I said. Rowan squeezed my shoulder once. Then he went inside. I walked down the steps. Soren watched me cross the gravel. You came alone, I said. Yes. No Idris, no Aldrich. No. Why? He took a breath. Because I'm not here for them. I stopped a few feet away. Then why are you here? He looked at me. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then he said, I'm here to tell you the truth, without angles, without the plan. I watched him. That would be a first. I know. I walked past him, toward the barn. Come on, he followed. The barn was dry. The rain drummed on the roof. I leaned against the workbench. Soren stood near the door, hands in his pockets. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. Good, because I don't have any, he nodded. I know what I did. I know what Idris did. I know what Aldrich allowed. And I didn't come to explain it. I came to say that it stops now. I looked at him. Stops how? Idris is shutting down the shell companies. He's filing corrected documentation with the state. He's unwinding everything. And Aldrich, Soren's jaw tightened. Aldrich doesn't know. He won't know until it's done. I let that land. You're going behind his back. Yes. Why? Soren looked at the floor. Because I've spent 10 years doing what he asked, and I watched what it did to you. I watched what it did to Sylvie. I watched what it did to me. He looked up. I don't want to be that person anymore. I did not answer. I thought about the evidence. The 8 months. Rowan's steady hands on the table. I thought about Noel showing up at my door with nothing but an apology. I thought about the fence line I had never crossed. You're not doing this for me, I said. No, you're doing it for yourself. Yes. Good, because I don't want anything from you. I don't want your guilt. I don't want your redemption. I just want you to clean up what you broke. Soren nodded. I will. Then we're done. He stood there for a moment, then he turned and walked to the door. He stopped. Callum, I waited. Sylvie knew, before she got sick. She tried to tell me. I didn't listen. I said nothing. She was right about everything. He went out into the rain. I stayed in the barn. The rain was steady on the roof. I could hear it hitting the gravel, the grass, the metal. I had not cried during any of it, not the evidence, not the dinner, not Soren's confession, but I felt something shift. A closing, not forgiveness, not reconciliation. Just the knowledge that the story was over, not because I had won, because I had stopped participating. I walked back to the house. Rowan was at the kitchen table with Petra, drawing something on a piece of paper. Illy was on the floor, pushing his wooden truck in slow, deliberate lines. Rowan looked up when I came in. I did not say anything. I sat down at the table. Petra slid a piece of paper toward me. Draw something, she said. I picked up a crayon. I drew a fence line, and then I drew a door in it. The rain stopped at sunset. The clouds broke apart slowly, letting strips of orange and purple through the gaps. The fields were wet. The air was clean. The kind of evening that makes you remember why you stayed somewhere. I was on the porch. Rowan was beside me. The children were inside with Grandpa Fenn. I could hear Petra's voice through the window. She was explaining something about clouds to Illy, who was not answering but was definitely listening. The folder was in my hands. Soren had left it on the passenger seat of his car. I had found it after he drove away. A single sheet of paper. Handwritten, Sylvie's handwriting. I had not seen it in years. Callum, if you're reading this, it means I ran out of time before I could tell you in person. I know what they're doing. I've known for a while. I tried to stop it from the inside. That was a mistake. You can't stop something from the inside if you're already part of the machine. I'm leaving this with someone I trust. If I can't get it to you myself, they will. I should have told you sooner. I should have said a lot of things sooner. You were always better than them. Better than me, probably. You left before it was too late. I was proud of you. I didn't say that enough. Be happy, not because you owe anyone, because you deserve it. Sylvie, I read it twice. Rowan was quiet beside me. She wrote this 2 weeks before she died, I said. How do you know? Because I recognize the paper. It's from the notebook she always carried. She never went anywhere without it. I folded the letter. She left it with someone she trusted. That someone was Soren. Rowan said nothing. He held on to it for years. Through the plan, through the evidence, through everything. Why did he give it to you now? I looked at the fields. Because he finally understood what it meant. I held the letter for a long time, then I folded it again and put it in my pocket, not to keep, to carry. Because that was what Sylvie had wanted. For me to carry the words she had said too late. I was not angry about the timing, I was just grateful she had said them at all. The fireflies came out. They drifted across the wet grass, small lights flickering in the dusk. Petra ran out onto the porch. Fireflies, Callum, look. I see them. She grabbed my hand. Come on. Where? To catch them? I looked at Rowan. He was already standing. Go, he said. I'll watch. I let Petra pull me off the porch. We ran into the field, her small hand in mine, the grass wet against my boots. She laughed. I did not. But I felt something close. We caught 3 fireflies. Petra held them carefully in her cupped hands, then let them go one by one. Look, she said, they always find their way back. I watched the last one drift into the dark. They do. She looked up at me. Like Rowan? Yes. Like you, I looked at her. Like me, she nodded, very serious. You came back too, from the city, from the family, from all of it. I did not correct her. She was not wrong. Back on the porch, the light was almost gone. Petra went inside to get ready for bed. Illy was already asleep on the couch, still holding his wooden truck. Grandpa Fen was reading his newspaper. The house was warm. Rowan was waiting. I sat beside him on the steps. Petra says fireflies always find their way back. They do. Like you, he looked at me, like me. Yes, I met his eyes, and like me. He was quiet. Then he reached over and took my hand, not tightly, just there, present. The field stretched out in the dark, full, untouched, and I was no longer part of their story. I was part of mine, part of this. Later, when the children were asleep, when Grandpa Fen had gone to bed, when the only sound was the wind through the fields, I leaned into Rowan's shoulder. He rested his cheek against my hair. I'm staying, I said, I know. Not because I owe you, because I want to. I know. Because you left your jacket at my apartment 8 years ago and I never returned it, and I think I knew even then that I was never going to. He was still. 8 years, he said. 8 years. And you're only telling me now. I'm only telling you now because I'm finally not afraid of what it means. He turned toward me. And what does it mean? I looked at him. At the man who had spent 8 months building evidence to protect me, who had driven through the night to stand beside me at a fence line, who had never asked me to be anything except who I was. It means, I said, that I was not finished loving you and I don't think I ever will be. He kissed me, slow. The porch light was the only thing on in the house. The fields were dark. The fireflies were gone. But we were still here. I do not know how the rest of it plays out. Idris will call again. Aldrich will not. I will see Noel at holidays. Soren will do whatever he needs to do to become someone Sylvie would have recognized. The farm will keep growing. The fence line will hold. And I will wake up every morning and walk to the edge of the boundary I built, not to check for breaks, but to remind myself that I am no longer guarding anything. I am living. And that is enough. If this story found you at the right moment, thank you for staying.